rotate. So here is, sorry, they want to get a question? I probably need the mic.
There you go. Question?
Yes. That is often true, but anyway. South Carolina is faced with many demands on its revenues: roads, schools, medical care, social services for vulnerable children and adults, law enforcement, and much more. What do you think the most important guiding principles are in deciding how and how much to fund these needs?
Well, you touched on the issues, whether it's roads, education, whatever it is. There are many legitimate needs out there. But you ask about guiding principles. What do we put into the thought process behind making those decisions? Well, to the extent possible, we live within our means. And I think we've demonstrated that. I've tried to do that in my personal life, in my business life. Running a campaign is a business. Every one of these candidates in here know that. You gotta have revenue contributions and you have expenditures. And you do that either within your means or you put it on debt. And I've always managed to live within my means when it comes to that. Looking back on my time in the legislature, I'm not averse to debt as much as I am in my personal life, because there's good things that you can do with government debt. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the highway funding issue. The big thing that we had to do, 2002, 2003, and 2004, and Representative Owens was there, and Representative Rice, during those great downturns in economic situations, we had to live and manage within our means. We did that. 2008, 2012, those 4 years were probably the worst catastrophic revenue impactful years that we've had since the Great Depression. And we're still climbing out of that hole. We're still climbing out of that hole. And we've done it without raising taxes, living within our means. That's what guides me as we talk about the priorities, and just as we go through the various questions we'll have in a little bit, we'll talk about how we dedicate revenue to education, to job creation, to roads, and so forth. But thank you very much. Those are my guiding principles.
The question said, and much more. So I'm going to assume that means all state spending. And we can fund all those needs with the money we have now, I think. Government is waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's just something that's a part of a bureaucracy. Government is a bureaucracy, and they're wasteful. In a leadership position, most of the 10 years in the Army, I was in nuclear weapons logistics. We had big budgets. You come up near the end of the year, and we had a lot of money left, and our officers would come to us and say, listen guys, you've got to spend this money. If you don't spend this money, you're not going to get it next year. Okay, we can fix that. The government has to be run as a business to be successful. And I have a degree in business. I will bring up zero-based budget. What that means, you get $5 million last year, and you think you're going to get $5 million next year, but that's not the way it works. You start at zero, and you go through there, and you say, okay, I need this much money for this. And it may be more, but most of the time, it's going to be less. So we can fund these without tax increases. My point is, I guess, is that we're out of the depression right now. We have surpluses at the state. We're within budget at the county. So I say no new taxes. This includes gas tax and everything else until we cut out the waste, the fraud, and the abuse.
On funding, we have to look at it, I guess, from our heart and understand what the needs of the community are. We have to look at it from our mind and understand, you know, what do we want to do with our children? How do we want to educate them? So, you know, I look at, from a heart standpoint, I look at, you know, what happens, what do we do as a state that may hurt somebody? And I look at our road system, and I look at the lack of concern for safety, and I say lack of concern. We are concerned about it, but there's things that we can do on our highway system, such as putting a rumble strip right down the center line of the road on our major highways that would stop crossover accidents. Mother's Day, we had a bad accident out here on Highway 11. If there was a rumble strip down the middle of that road, that may not have happened. DOT does not necessarily look at things on a priority basis like they should. School funding. Right now, we're not funding our local schools at the level that we should for the state. And we need to get that level back up to where we can educate our kids, where they're ready to go in the workforce. I think that from a budget standpoint, I think we need to look at a budget every 2 years instead of every year. I served on Ways and Means, and I watched us run a budget through every year. We'd find sacred cows in there, take them out of the budget in the House, and the Senate would put them back in. And by the time, I know right now, they're just about to finish up the budget process in Columbia. So by the time you have time to deal with it, it's over with, they've stuck sacred cows back in the budget. One thing that I passed 3 times through the House was called sunset legislation. It audits every state agency. It determines whether they're efficient, effective, and are they on mission. And if they're not, it shuts them down. We need to pass sunset legislation again. I think that's a good start. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think the better question to ask is, why don't we let the people spend their own money? We have too much government infringing into our everyday lives. The government's deciding what's going on in our school systems, what's going on in our home systems. It needs to get back to the basics. Once again, common sense. So we have a problem down at the State House. It's an opium problem. Our legislatures are addicted to opium. Not the drug, not the one that the CIA is protecting in Afghanistan. It is other people's money. And that's what the problem is the government is so addicted to other people's money. There's different ways to spend money. If you have $5 in your pocket, you're probably going to spend that a little bit more wisely because that's only $5 you have. So it comes down to when you're spending other people's money, it's a little bit more free reign. And they don't think of everything or all the possibilities that money can go back to. So like Quinn said, fraud, waste, and abuse. I see it every day. I seen it when I was in Afghanistan. I saved over $1.5 billion in equipment that was being spent in Afghanistan, and I stopped that. And frankly, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I received a medal because of that. So there's a problem with our government when it comes to spending, and so we have to rein in on that. And if we keep, it's easy to say 10 cents is not a problem. Let's go ahead and raise the tax so that way our roads get fixed. That's not the problem. We got overtaxed $1.3 billion, and the legislature is breaking the law and not giving that money back to the people. We're being overtaxed. The money's there. There's no need to raise it. We just need to funnel it properly to the right channels and account for it. It's just simple.